Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new chapter of Old Man Brad. Whether you are new to the show or returning for another chapter, thank you so much for giving this little horror podcast a listen. And if you love the show, drop me a review over on your favorite podcast app, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/oldmanbrad. So this week I have three films in a series. It is an anthology series called It's Fresh Hell Presents. It's from Cranked Up Films, and it's The Exorcism of Saint Patrick, Wolves Against the World, and Dead Teenagers, all written and directed by Quinn Armstrong. And I have an interview with Quinn I can't wait for you to hear. But then after that, I'll kind of give just some quick thoughts on the films, which you can check out on digital right now. Before we dive into that, if you're in the Cincinnati area, come out to Frightful Fridays on the third Friday of the month. And our screening for October is the one and only Trick or Treat. So come out to the Esquire October 18th at 10 p.m. and let's watch a movie together. All right, let's take a trip to fresh hell.
So scared of hell. So scared of hell. So scared of hell. So scared of hell. So scared of hell. See you in hell, monster.
Like I said, these three movies, The Exorcism of Saint Patrick, Wolves Against the World, and Dead Teenagers, were all written and directed by Quinn Armstrong. He stars in Wolves Against the World. And I'll give you just a couple quick synopsis of each movie, and then we'll dive into our interview with Quinn, and then I'll talk to you on the other side. The Exorcism of Saint Patrick. A pastor takes a gay teen to a cabin to perform conversion therapy. When he goes too far, bullying the kid into suicide, the ghost of his victim returns to plague the pastor and avenge the deaths of so many other ghosts like him. Wolves Against the World. Two members of a defunct neo-Nazi metal band reunite at the site of their bandmate's suicide. One sinks into depravity and grievance, and one tries to atone for what he has done. What ensues is an occult battle of wills. And then our final film, Dead Teenagers, a masked killer, a cabin in the woods, a group of teens. The basic ingredients of a very old story. But when the killer accidentally dies, the kids discover they cannot leave. All three of these movies are available on digital now. I saw the first two in theaters and watched the third one at home. I'll dive into some quick thoughts on those here in a few, but right now, let's move into my interview with Quinn Armstrong, and I will talk to you on the other side. He's worked on many projects, including Survival Kills and many short films. His new project, consisting of three films, The Exorcism of Saint Patrick, Wolves Against the World, and Dead Teenagers, which are available digitally now. I want to welcome in Quinn Armstrong. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Why three movies? Like, you know what? Forget one movie. I'm going to make three.
The story of this starts, as all good stories do, with a conversation about the Ohio film tax incentive. I pitched this idea. I'd been trying to, Good Deed bought my first movie, and I'd been we'd been thinking like, well, do we want to, what about this? What about this? What about this for a while? And then one day I kind of randomly just called Andy Myers over there and said, hey, what if we did three movies? And he was like, that actually works out really well for us. I did not think they were going to say yes. At so many points during this process, I kept being like, and this is when you guys say no, you're being crazy, right?
How did the ideas for these three, kind of an anthology story, would you say? Is that what it is?
It's a really loose anthology.
Okay.
There's some anthologies that are really tight. There's big wraparound, very connected. This is much more on the looser end. It really comes through in Dead Teenagers the most. But this was, I grew up watching stuff like Creep Show and Tales from the Crypt and Body Bags and these old horror anthologies on TV late at night, sneaking in and trying not to get caught. And one of the things that I I always loved, even as a kid, just sort of the mechanics of what stories go where and what order you put them in and how they kind of resonate with each other. I'm a habit based writer in that I write every day for a certain amount of time, just like as a, like almost like going to the gym, like as a physical activity. And so I have so many terrible scripts on my computer. I have like easily 200. And yeah, most of them are truly awful. But the nice thing is, when something like this comes up, the idea for the anthology of features came first before I knew which ones I wanted. And so there's this idea of like, okay, we're going to do an anthology of features, and then I went hunting through all of my projects to see which ones resonated interestingly when you put them next to each other. Wolves and Exorcism are very closely paired. They are very, very similar movies structurally. They're both two-handers about these sort of power dynamics. And originally the plan was just those two. And then I liked the idea of throwing a real weird one on top just to kind of destabilize it. Yeah, so that's kind of how they came to be.
Dead Teenagers is definitely the one that is much different than the other two. The other two are very similar. And as you were creating this, like you said, kind of the Dead Teenagers was just kind of, we wanted to go a little different. Were these filmed all kind of back to back to back together, or were they spaced apart?
Yeah, back to back to back in rural Ohio, on a Christmas tree farm for the most part. The entire cast and crew stayed in a dorm at the local university, who hated that we were there. I don't know why. They just hated that we were there. We didn't do anything, but everybody just went to set and came back and went immediately to sleep. But I don't know. They were mad. It was kind of like a summer camp sort of vibe. We were there for about 3 months, little 2.5 months, that kind of thing. And we would all have like little weekend excursions and we all went to Grandpa's Cheese Barn out there and all these little fun things.
The first two movies, they're slower burn, just a few characters in a single location. And then you get to the third one and it's more of like self-aware, very meta, very, I don't want to say tropey, but there are some tropes that you kind of squash along the way. Like, I want to know, like, Dead Teenagers, how did you come up with, after these first two, very similar, very slow burn, like, character driven, to what we got in Dead Teenagers? I don't want to give too much away or any, like, spoilers that, because people have to see it. Because it did surprise me when I found out what was going on.
Yeah, so Dead Teenagers was the oldest idea of all of them. That was back in like 2017, something like that. The first version of that got written, and even in 2017, the idea of characters who are aware that they're in a horror movie was kind of hacky. Like it's a very, like, that sort of meta horror thing is really played at this point, but it is almost always played mainly for laughs, a la sort of Scream or Cabin in the Woods, which are, amazing movies. They're really remarkable. And what I wanted to do was take, people use the word deconstruction a lot with regards to stuff like that, Scream and Cabin in the Woods, and they're not deconstructions, they're parodies. Deconstruction is like an actual sort of like philosophical and intellectual process. And I was kind of thinking, like, well, what if we did actually try to use a deconstructive process to push this meta thing beyond a joke, to just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing until we're attacking concepts like, what is an identity? What is a person? I'm a big fan of doing that. My first movie, Survival Skills, is a similar thing of just like, you take a concept where people like, oh, I get what this is, and you just push and push and push and push far beyond where it would usually stop.
In the first two movies, it's a different kind of push, because you deal with neo-Nazis, white supremacy, with being gay, the church, everything else. Like, Like, what influences, especially for those first two, did you use to create those stories?
There's a mix of the sort of like, insufferably cinephilic, oh yes, Ingmar Bergman, which like is such a, but also Ingmar Bergman is a fucking amazing. Like, there are these people who you just can't get away from, really, in, Kurosawa and Bergman, David Lynch, John Carpenter in horror, things like that. It's silly to pretend that you're not influenced, even if it's kind of a basic answer. But the biggest influence in those is anger, is my own personal anger. I work best when I'm angry. I am most engaged with things that make me angry, because if I'm happy or I'm sad, I don't really want to write. I don't really want to work. I want to go do other things. But if I'm angry, then I find it connects me to the material, it sharpens everything, and it makes it feel like I'm doing something that's more than just like, I want to make a movie, I want to be a director, kind of stuff.
What challenges did you face, like creating, not only just doing 3 movies, but I mean, each one is a little different. And I mean, you were similar locations for all 3, correct?
Yeah, and oh my God, our cinematographer Sidney Lawson, I think, it's interesting. This is the first podcaster interview I've done since they've been released, and I've been able to see sort of what the reaction is. Even the reactions overall been much more positive than I was expecting, which is great. We love that. But even anything that's been negative, nobody has been able to talk shit about Sidney Lawson's work as the cinematographer of these. She managed to make those spaces distinct. She managed to make them interesting in their own ways in all 3 movies, which honestly, like, for the first 2 movies, we shot Dead Teenagers and then we shot Exorcism. The challenges were aesthetic and artistic, and we were trying to figure out, how do we make these spaces interesting? How do we shoot these dialogue scenes in ways that don't become samey? By the time we got to Wolves, the challenges were like managerial, and they were like, okay, everybody, we are 30 something days in on a low budget. How do we get to the finish line? There's a sense of exhaustion and nerviness, I think, in Wolves. And we had a great time, on set, and everybody, this crew, I can't say enough wonderful things about this crew, this Ohio-based crew. There's a definite change in the atmosphere. And especially in the last, I think 7 days of production is when I shaved my head for Wolves. And when I walked on set with my head shaved, I could feel people being like we had all gotten really close. I could feel sort of lean away from all right, that's fair. That's reasonable.
He's really into this character right now. What? Oh no.
I know. Well, and that's one of the things with that character is that one of the reasons that it was me who did it, I have a theater background, I was an actor and all that. But one of the reasons it was me is because I really my nightmare is somebody watching Wolves and being like, oh, cool. What a cool guy. And so I wanted to, one of the biggest risks in all 3 movies is how annoying Anders is in Wolves. He just has these horrible long speeches and says all this horrible stuff, and he kind of rambles and babbles and doesn't really make a lot of sense a lot of the time, and I didn't want to put that in anybody else's mouth. I didn't want to beg the audience to hate someone if it wasn't going to be me, but it definitely had an impact on set as we were working. But everybody was wonderful, and we're such pros.
How long was the shoot overall?
42 days. 15 on Teenagers, 12 on Exorcism, 15 on Wolves. I did some research, and I think our total budget was about a week of catering on I think it's the Marvels, or one of the big Marvel movies. And it's again, a testament to the crew, how well that money stretched and showed up on screen, and how much that time showed up on screen.
Are there any plans to take the Fresh Hell series any further?
Yeah, I mean, like inevitably with stuff like this, it is a question of if it makes money for the studio.
State of the world.
Yeah, and that's these movies are for me kind of halfway between my native level of weirdness and a sort of more audience friendly horror kind of structure. So it's been interesting watching that process. There are concepts. There are 3 concepts for the next quote unquote season. What I can say about it is that if it ever does happen, they'd be set in offices, and they'd be tied by an office location in the way this was tied by a cabin location, and it would be called Fresh Hell Incorporation.
Quinn, as we kind of wrap up, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Where can people kind of follow along to you to kind of see what you got going on? And
people are so kind. They always ask me this question. I have no social media. The idea of people following me is terrifying to me.
That's fair. That is completely fair.
So Google my name every 2 years and you'll be golden. But you can follow Cranked Up Films. They release these. They're releasing a lot of great genre content. They're also starting up their own streaming service soon, which is really interesting. I'm so curious to see what that ends up looking like. If you're looking for indie horror, especially stuff in Ohio, like regional horror, I love regional horror so much, then they're the people to follow.
I wish you best of luck with these 3 films, and we'll watch to see what you kind of have coming in the future. We'll just Google you every so often, and we'll
just Google every couple of years, and there'll be something new.
Thank you again for chatting with me.
No worries. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Again, I want to thank Quinn for chatting with me. It was great insight about working on these 3 movies. So like I said, I have seen all 3, and the first 2 are very much a slow burn, 2 people out in the woods in a cabin kind of a story. I will tell you, these first 2, like even he said, when I shaved my head, and the dialogue and everybody, I wanted people to dislike me, not somebody else. And you will hate his character in the movie. Just like the pastor in the first one. And then the third one was my favorite of the 3. It was a teen slasher, and it was just a fun film to watch. The first 2 were a little kind of slow go. They led up to this ending that kind of hit hard. And then, we get to this third movie, and it kind of links to the other 2 a little bit in a couple pieces. So overall, as a threesome, it was a very interesting concept. This Fresh Hell Presents, like I asked him, will there be more Fresh Hell movies? And he said he has some ideas. It would be cool to kind of see some other stories and where this goes. I don't know. I think with these 3, especially, I kind of, instead of 3 full movies, personally for me, like even an anthology could have worked for these 3 with the 2 stories interwoven with what we got in the third one. But I don't know. They were each their own beasts, and go check them out on digital right now, and we'll see if we get more of these in the future. As I head out today, I have another film that you should be watching at home, and that is a movie called Things Will Be Different. This is written and directed by Michael Felker. It stars Adam David Thompson and Riley Dandy, and this movie is just a trip. It is a mindfuck, time travel, multi-space kind of weirdness. Think something like Looper or something like that. Both Adam David Thompson and Riley Dandy basically have to carry this movie. They're stuck in this farmhouse with a bunch of stuff going on. I'm not going to give anything away because I want you to go see it. Riley Dandy is awesome in this. She was my favorite part of Christmas Bloody Christmas. Absolutely loved her in that. She kills it in this one. I want to see her in more horror, more films. She is great. But overall, this movie is definitely worth your watch. Go check out Things Will Be Different. It's on VOD right now. Promise you, it will be worth it. Well, there you go. That will do it for another chapter of Old Man Brad. I have a whole lot coming at you here in October. Can't wait. Next chapter, I have another interview with you. I interview Jake Jarvie, the writer and director of the new film Haunt Season, as well as more Tales from Tubi coming each Friday in October. Just make sure you subscribe and you'll never miss any of great content out over here at Old Man Brad. Just snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.